On February 3rd, 2025, I got a cryptic message from camera inventor and beloved person, Ethan Moses. It started, "Hello friend. I've had a pit in my stomach for a week now that I've been ready to invite you to Albuquerque." He added, "I don't really want to tell you what it is until you're here. The most interesting thing happening in analog photography is right here in Albuquerque. I've invented a new format." And you might be wondering now, who is Ethan Moses? Why did he have a pit in his stomach? And what has this man done to expand the analog photography universe, as he so boldly claims? Well, true to his word, Ethan has indeed invented a new paper-based roll format, complete with a new way to shoot it and a first-of-its-kind way to process it. All manifested, engineered, and produced in Albuquerque, where Ethan has spent 15 months generating his so-called master system. Pack your bags, get your film hand checked, and join me on a journey to Cameradactyl HQ in the ABQ for this episode of In an Instant.
The kind of photography that would become part of the human being. Press a button and have the picture.
When I received that fateful text message on February 3rd, where Ethan invited me to Albuquerque alongside friend and Brooklyn film camera purveyor Kyle Depew, you might say it's strange enough that an eccentric camera maker invited me to fly 2,000 miles to his home with virtually no context whatsoever. Well, what's even stranger is that 36 hours earlier, I'd already booked my plane tickets. See, I had long been planning to return to the Southwest, where I wanted to fill out my 8x10 portfolio with some of my favorite locations along Route 66. I planned to land in Albuquerque, New Mexico, and leave from Oklahoma City, and that's all I knew at that point. I excitedly booked the one-way plane tickets and would fill in the itinerary later. So imagine my surprise when a day and a half later, I was summoned to the very place I'd already booked tickets to go. It felt like the analog gods were reaching out and drafting me into a war or something. At the very least, a mission to see whatever the hell Ethan was chefing up. Or it had implied that Ethan had access to my credit cards and American Airlines account and invited me when he saw my transaction history, which, you know, it's like, of all things to have happen, not so bad to get hacked by like a friend. I don't know. Either way, compelled by the mystery, I decided to write on a piece of paper what I thought Ethan had been working on and seal it away for later. 2 weeks later, I got on a flying machine, forced to keep my 8x10 camera in my lap because I had to check my carry-on. And when I finally arrived in the ABQ and pulled up to Ethan's studio, Kyle had already arrived and was preparing to moon me. But Ethan hadn't yet spilled nigh a single bean to BFC's founder as we both cautiously entered a three-dimensional representation of Ethan's brain, a maker's lab in Albuquerque called Q Labs. Immediately upon entry, with basically no time to chit-chat, Ethan began showing us everything.
What the?
Oh no, what is this? Ripping the band-aid off with a bizarre TLR 4x5 camera that was almost a distraction from the true innovation at hand. We were blasted with strobes and a disorienting introduction to what we would soon learn was a new 4-inch wide roll format using color photo paper, like the type your family photos are printed on at the pharmacy. But instead of using a printer, Ethan's shooting this paper directly in camera, loaded into a motion picture-esque reel-to-reel film back capable of shooting over 100 4x5 images per roll, and then developed using an uncommon but still prevalent RA4 reversal process by which you can take this paper, which wasn't intended to be shot in camera, and develop it into an image after it is exposed to light, all in Ethan's newly designed roll-to-roll dip and dunk processor.
Developer stop, wash, color developer, Blix, wash, dryer.
From front to back, an entirely new way of creating and processing images, Ethan's master system, his magnum opus. Just when you thought you saw a guy's magnum opus, he's like, that was just a regular opus. This one is the magnum. Ethan has opi. Opuses? Opuses? Opuses. As I had my retinas bonked by the brightness of 4 suns, my mind returned to what I'd written on that dark slide I put in the envelope. My prediction was actually coming true. 4x5 roll film, paper process, an end-to-end system. How is it that I more or less guessed what Ethan was secretly cooking up? No, I didn't have access to his credit cards or American Airlines account. I just took everything I knew about Ethan's oeuvre, the processes he focuses on, and then simply extrapolated what the most natural evolution could be. See, Ethan for years has been refining his work in the realm of direct positives. Inspired by the death of Polaroid pack film to further pursue positive paper processes, he got quite good at shooting photo paper and getting a positive image out of it. The kind of thing everyone can get behind. In October of 2021, Ethan drove a homemade 20x24 camera in a non-homemade U-Haul truck from Albuquerque to Brooklyn, where I got to experiment with his self-developing camera backs that utilized 20x24 Fuji Crystal Archive photo paper, the same paper used for this master system, and the RA4 reversal chemical process to create a huge black and white negative image that is then reversed to a color positive in front of your eyes. Shooting with such a cumbersome process was wonderfully challenging, including dealing with the effective ISO of the paper being around 1 to 5, and you're shooting it in a 20x24 camera, and there's a lot of chemistry around. Ethan introduced a truly special methodology with this pseudo in-camera paper process, but it wasn't quite in its final form. The floor ended up having enough chemistry to serve as the primordial soup for a new species, and the tray developing was awesome and interactive, but a slow way to make a single image.
The 20x24 was like incredibly fun and like fulfilling to use. It was also like very slow and expensive. Until recently, I did not have the space to even set the thing up and focus it. And so it was not something that I could use very frequently. And when I could use it, like I could make a very limited amount of work.
So permeate from there. How do you shoot more images and do so more quickly and develop them in a way that doesn't leave you standing in 2 inches of fixer? That is how we get to Ethan's master system, an end-to-end solution for shooting color paper and processing it in a bespoke machine, all designed to optimize this format that has continued to inspire him through an immense journey of research and development.
I decided to go for it at the beginning of 2024 and just like dedicate 3 months to this project. And you know, you get 3 months in and you're like, wow, there's so much more to do. The project deserves another 3 months. And when I got to 6 months, it became plainly obvious that the project deserved a year. There were multiple points at which I hit the end time and cash allotted for the project, and I was like, no, it's too good. It just has to be. And so I made that choice 5 or 6 times. It really reminds me of Bop It.
The roll paper back is gorgeous and so fun to use. It's a 4x5 Graphlok compatible back that is loaded with the light sealed 4-inch paper roll and then spooled into a take-up can, which is then shot through and then directly loaded into the photo processor, which pulls the paper from the canister through a black and white developer that first results in a black and white negative, which emerges into daylight at the center of the machine, then re-enters a second bath of color developer, which inverts the negative into a color positive before your eyes. And after a bleach and a fix and a healthy blast from a consumer hairdryer, the paper roll ejects in a final formed series of prints. The fruit of the Cameradactyl master system is a result that undeniably resembles a classic photo booth strip, only larger and in color. Indeed, it was the photo booth and its indelible, almost foundational tie to photography as a form that served as part of the inspiration for this new format and system. Inside every analog photo booth is a series of tanks that the photo strip passes through to ultimately produce a typically black and white positive set of 4 images. This process has existed for 100 years, literally 100 years. Ethan unknowingly unveiled this new format on the 100-year anniversary of the photo booth's patenting in 1925. Ethan's master system, at least in how he's been deploying it, is in some ways an interpolation of the photo booth, large format, and his continuous refinement of direct positive processes, which he's explored not only through his self-developing backs, but also his Afghan box cameras, through which paper is developed into a direct positive within the camera itself, using a hand to guide its travel. Although his new process creates long continuous strips, he prefers to cut them into 4s. The space also started as a blank box, which Ethan then added all of our images to as we shot more and more, eventually surrounding ourselves with montages of strips and faces. Like the photo booth process, the RA4 reversal process isn't what one would consider perfect technically. While Ethan has streamlined it for in-camera shooting in a way that hasn't been done before, the results straddle an interesting line between being vivid, eye-catching prints and also prints which contain strong texture that can obscure fine detail, or occasional flourishes of imperfection that one might say adds to the aesthetic. This all means that yes, you are shooting 4x5 handheld, or on a tripod, at an insane rate, but the 4x5 sheets you're producing are not like your typical negatives, which are primed for enlargement. The images seem most at home in these strips, as the print itself, like a Polaroid, the thing you made in camera, but fit with a quality that seems truly one of a kind. I think irreproducibility, the feeling of an object being special and singular to a moment, is a big draw for me to the instant film medium. It's one of the qualities I cherish in a world where most images and basically anything exists in a non-physical form. Even film negatives are negatives. While they are physical, they still present a layer between you and the final image. These strips, like my beloved Polaroids, felt truly special to handle and hang and share. That's the magic of an in-camera positive, as nerdy as that sentence sounds. When I started interacting with this behemoth of a camera and working within the confines of the RA4 reversal process, it became clear why it's so well suited for this look. You need a lot of light for this stuff to be shootable handheld, and the best environment for a process with so much demand for light with narrow latitude is an environment you can control. While Ethan is getting great results with Crystal Archive paper, the paper was not intended to be used this way, in camera, and as such requires substantial lens filtration to achieve an appealing color balance in the final print. Filtration makes the paper's already low functional ISO even lower. And when I was inspired to take this rig outside, we wanted to do some tests to determine what our optimal aperture and shutter speeds might be for open sun and open shade. We set up the camera outside in a couple of scenarios. Both setups basically to do a bracket test where we expose the images at a cascading variety of shutter speeds from a second to 1/15. I love operating this thing. So I'm doing 1/5, 5/6. This was when I really got to start wielding the camera, which is incredibly delightful, and even though I have a Graflex SLR, this had me wanting my very own Ethan TLR. Alright, gotta say. We ended up working with the paper at ISO 1. Ethan had shot a bit outdoors, but only sparingly, so it felt particularly exciting to use such a new thing in a new way, and in a locale that I actually love, photographically speaking. One of the quirks here is that the RA4 process renders a reversed image, a reversed positive, so none of this text would be correctly oriented, so it's not really a cool photo to take, but cool to look at. With that slow paper speed and large format optics, your fastest lenses often hover at around f5.6. So my handheld shutter speed in direct sunlight was 1/5, truly at the edge of usability. And with dramatic inconsistencies that come from me only getting a couple photo walks with it, not yet honing in on the ideal conditions of light and methodology. I can't overstate how fun it was to rip like this, and maybe these images don't look all too impressive, but this is hard. I was stoked to get this indoor shot of Jeremy at the Route 66 diner, even though it's underexposed, and a variety of outdoor scenes with halfway decent exposure. It was sort of a proof of concept of how I might roll with this in the future. But speaking of the future, now to a critical question. It was wonderful to be in Albuquerque in Ethan's orbit, being guided through this system. But what happens next? How does this interact with the world and get into the hands of photographers? After all, Ethan has said, I made this for you.
So very traditional basic part is for now, I'm just going to make them and I'm going to sell them. But here's the thing, I don't want to make it. I would much rather that you print it at home. And so I'm gonna sell pictures of my head, and when I sell $300,000 of pictures of my head, I will just release the files for free. Until then, I will just do normal business. You can just buy this from me.
To summarize, as I had a couple of days to wrap my head around this, Ethan spent around 15 months inventing this system, like I said. It's a substantial investment of his life and money to iterate on this concept from the inception as an idea into this final form. And that's Ethan's dream job, to be able to create and invent and dream up future machines.
I don't want to make any of these things. I don't want to scale. I don't want to make it. I would much rather that you print it at home.
What Ethan very clearly does not want to do is actually sit there in a sea of 3D printers, physically assembling the camera backs and processors that are necessary for this to have a physical presence in the photography marketplace. Ethan simply wants to have invented this and be compensated for having done so, and then intends to release it into the world for anyone to 3D print. Right now, as of today in 2025, Ethan is selling the accoutrement for the master system. You can buy the processor, you can buy the back, and you can even buy the crazy 4x5 camera he designed to use with it. But this isn't the long-term solution he wants for the process. So he's created a rollout plan, as strange as this whole system itself, in which you can purchase images captured during the invention of the master system to fund its ultimate materialization. When the purchases of these photo strips total $300,000, he will release the system in totality for anyone to download, print, and theoretically sell, I guess. You could think of it as like the crowdfunding of this idea into reality, or an opportunity for a couple of major industry players to invest together and bring it to the market. We'll see where that path takes us. For now, as a photographer and not a 3D printer or manufacturer, I can't wait for the day this becomes accessible to me. As not only an alternative process enjoyer, but also a professional shooter, there are many applications for which this process appeals to what I do. I could see bringing this to an event, a wedding, as an activation, and it being an interactive and engaging photo format that everyone can watch develop and go nuts over. Like an unfurled photo booth. This would kill. I know it because I've seen firsthand how fun it is. And more people have to see that. That's why I made this video. That's why I hope Ethan is successful in finding interested producers, or at the very least getting it into some people's hands to further drum up interest, because I want it and I want it now. This was an experience I will not forget, because now it's in a YouTube video. Wonderful to spend time at Q Labs and in the Cameradactyl verse, and to be there the moment Ethan published the website and his own video explaining the master system. It was pretty crazy. Dude had just been percolating for over a year, and I got to see his face the moment he smashed publish. Major shout out to Kyle as well, who helped shoot this episode. He was out there with me on this path of discovery, and Lord knows we discovered, brother. Shout out as well to Joe Van Cleve and Dr. SX70, aka Jeremy. They are Albuquerque-based members of this film community I love and am in love with, and it was wonderful to see them in their natural habitats. Check out Joe's video on this invention. He was basically the only person to see this project's entire realization from start to finish under a death grip of a friend DA with Ethan. So that's another great video which we also appear in. The kind of photography that will become part of the human being. Press a button and have the picture. I've heard that 1,000 times. It's crazy saying it. Ethan, thank you so much for having us here. This was one of the most unbelievable things that I've gotten to behold in my time exploring the analog wonders of the world. This is certainly now a pillar that I'm not sure can ever be topped. Where can the people learn more about this project and potentially get involved?
Yeah, go to Cameradactyl.com. You can buy all the stuff, or you collectively, by buying pictures of my head, can buy me out, and I'll go back to developing things, and you can print the stuff at home.
Yes, that is ideal if you're into that kind of thing. If you're not, you can keep following the project and potentially buy components as they're released. Thank you for watching in an instant. Go ahead and load 106 shots into a back and drop it on that damn subscribe button. Stay tuned for more reviews, adventures like this, breakdowns, and all things instant, or slightly instant, like RA4.
Thank you.
Bye.